This is Bob Oliphant from the Westford Historical Society and Museum, bringing you episode 19 of the Westford Wardsman podcast. The Westford Wardsman newspaper was part of Turner's Public Spirit, a weekly newspaper in Ayer a century ago. In this episode, we'll be reading the Westford Wardsman for the week ending Saturday, May 9th, 1908, and I will add context as we read along to elaborate on what was happening in Westford 113 years ago. The May 9th issue begins with the About Town section. Frederick Martin, aged 71 years, died at the Lowell Hospital last Saturday. He had been sick but a short time and went to the hospital for an operation, which was performed last week, Tuesday. Mr. Martin was born in Prussia, Germany, and came to this country when a young man and carried on a bakery in Boston for 30 years. He then purchased a farm in the south part of this town, where he has lived for the past 20 years. I might add that Frederick's wife, Elizabeth Kaufman Martin, had died in 1907, just the year before. She was born in East Boston of the daughter of German immigrants. And an older brother, John Martin, had died in Westford in 1898. John's wife, Eulalia Hamill Martin, died here in 1885. And the family, both of those two brothers' families appear in the 1880 Westford census, so they were here by them. The Martins are all buried in West Lawn Cemetery. Back to the About Town section. The Westford baseball team will meet the Littleton team on this ball field, Westford Depot, this Saturday afternoon. The Westford Grays defeated the Forge team on the Common last Saturday, 14-3. George W. Whidden, formerly a resident of Westford, died at his home in Waltham Saturday night, aged 49 years. Besides his wife and one son, he is survived by his father, Charles E. Whidden, and sister, Mrs. J. Willard Fletcher of this town, also 5 brothers. The WCTU, that's the Women's Christian Temperance Union, held a meeting Wednesday afternoon at Mrs. H.G. Osgood's. 16 members were present. Mrs. Osgood served lemonade and cake. It was planned to have a temperance address at an early date by Mrs. Rolfe, R-O-L-F-E, of Concord at Town Hall. Mr. McGlinchey, who was burned out last week, has moved into one of Mrs. McGregor's houses. Although the fire hose with ladders and other equipment is close by, inability to find the key caused some delay, it being finally necessary to break the door in. The town meeting is the next section. At the special town meeting last Saturday afternoon, about 100 voters were present. The meeting was called to order by Town Clerk Edward Fisher, who read the warrant and called for the election of moderator. Leonard W. Wheeler was elected. The second article, relating to adding 2 rooms to Forge Village Schoolhouse and appropriating money for same. In behalf of the school committee, Albert R. Schote, chairman of the board, reported an enrollment of 110 scholars, which will be increased to 140 at the fall term. The Abbott Company Clubhouse is now occupied by 27 scholars. He reported the expense of transportation to be $500 per year and advised the voters to meet the issues squarely, as the schoolhouse should be enlarged. Voted to accept the report. Article 3 was to see if the town would vote to borrow money to meet the indebtedness incurred in adding 2 rooms to said schoolhouse. Captain Sherman H. Fletcher, on behalf of the Finance Committee, reported that they had visited the premises and believed that action should be taken at once, that the leased premises of the Abbott Company were inadequate in size, deficient in ventilation and sanitary conditions. He recommended that a committee of 5 be appointed to employ an architect to prepare plans and to call for bids, that $100 be appropriated for the use of this committee. Said committee to report at a future town meeting. The report was accepted after much gentle cross-examination. An amendment offered by A.R. Wall to have the school committee have full control was defeated 47-25. An amendment by C.L. Hildreth to have the committee of 5 appointed by the moderator, chairman of school committee, and chairman of board of selectmen was carried, and the following citizens chosen: A.R. Schote, John Spinner, J.E. Abbott, S.H. Fletcher, and J.A. Cameron. Article 4, to see if the town would appropriate $150 to properly celebrate the 4th of July, brought forward about a dozen motions to dismiss the article in such a hurry up time that the moderator had hardly time to finish reading the article. A fit of poverty having overtaken the meeting at this juncture, they were deprived of the right kind of eyesight to perceive that while we appropriate $150 for Memorial Day in memory of those who preserved our liberties, we are opposed to a cent's worth of public celebration in memory of those who gave us this liberty. Remember that Memorial Day rests on the foundation of 4th of July and the heroism that preceded it. John A. Healy argued that it would raise the tax rate. So it would, almost a mill. An unknown gentleman thought those who wanted a celebration should go into their pockets for the money. That is what they have been doing, dear sir, and it is about time the town went into its pocket once in 200 years. It was clearly evident from the number of motions to dismiss that there would be no need of resorting to polling the House to determine the opinion of the meeting. The vote to dismiss was about 94-6. Article 5 was to establish the pay of the regular call firemen. The Finance Committee recommended that the pay of the firemen be as follows: a yearly salary of $1, the captains to receive 35 cents per hour, lieutenants 30 cents per hour, regular and call men 25 cents per hour, stewards $25 per year. The report of the Finance Committee was accepted after an abundance of opinion and free circulation. Article 6 was to see if the town will build 3 firehouses. The Finance Committee recommended for the center of the town that the town lease the wheelwright shop of Mrs. Nelson Tuttle for 5 years at $60 per year. Mrs. Tuttle lived at 16 Boston Road per the 1889 Walker map of Westford Center, which shows the shop located just south of the house on Boston Road. And back to the article, at Ford's Village, it was recommended that the town appropriate $400 to purchase the shop of W.E. Parsons at Graniteville, that the town accept the free use of a room in the stable of John A. Healy. The opinion was expressed that $300 for 5 years for the use of the building at the center was not good financing, as compared with the town owning a building, and on this basis, J. Everett Woods moved that the lease be only for 1 year. To this came the reply that the building could not be leased for less than 5 years. Objections were urged against the plan at Graniteville on account of the inconvenience of storage in case of fire. Captain Fletcher of the Finance Committee admitted it was not ideal, but believed it best for 1 year until a convenient site was in sight. After these objections had been taken care of, the report was accepted. Article 7 related to the town accepting and approving the action of the selectmen in settling with the electric road. This was the Lowell and Fitchburg Street Railway Road. The town clerk read the agreement and thought the town better take up with the offer, which was $2,500. The meeting thought so too and would like to have the goods delivered. Article 8, relating to repairing the road with part of the above sum, met with defeat. O.R. Spaulding of the Board of Selectmen moved to dismiss, and as road repairing had no heavyweight defender, the article was given a recess, although the road is unsafe in many places, and what with projecting rocks, automobiles, bicycles, teams, electric cars, and 9 feet of roadbed, the town is at the risk of accidents, which may make it necessary for the individual to take a recess at the expense of the town. The road referred to here is the Lowell and Fitchburg Electric Railway spur track that ran from Brookside to Westford Center. Article 9 was to see if the town will instruct the Finance Committee to fix the salaries of the town officers and report at the next annual meeting. Now, whether they are to fix a higher or lower salary doth not yet appear, but some of the officers already receive liberal salaries. The selectmen are living on a salary of $500 a year. Here is a chance to reduce the tax rate by reducing this salary. With this purpose in view, or some other, the Finance Committee were authorized to prepare a readjustment of salaries and report at the next annual meeting. If the town accepts said forthcoming report, it will take effect upon its passage. This attempt to establish salaries proportionate to the labor must not be constructed in the light of a salary grab. I think Sam Taylor was trying to pull the selectman's leg when he suggested that their salary of $500 might be reduced. The next town meeting will be held the last of this month or early in June to hear the report of the Committee on Schoolhouse Expansion. For his first appearance as moderator, Mr. Wheeler kept order and parliamentary law proportioned out satisfactorily. The next section is Westford Center. A most successful food sale was held last week, Friday afternoon, by the ladies of the Congregational Society. A good array of homemade rolls, cakes, pies, cookies, donuts, etc. found ready sale and netted a good sum for the treasury. The Edward M. Abbott Hose Company, No. 1, had a second test Monday evening. Several more hydrants were tested with good results. After this work, the company adjourned to the town hall for the business meeting, when the same list of officers was chosen as has previously appeared in these columns. Donald McLeod, who has been so critically ill with pneumonia at his home in the south part of the town, is considerably improved. No new cases of measles seem to develop, and it is hoped there will be no further spread of the disease. The cases already reported are progressing toward recovery. The next section is from the Tadmonk Club. The closing meeting of the third season of the Tadmonk Club took place on Tuesday afternoon at the Congregational Church. This change of meeting place from the usual pleasant quarters and library hall was for the availability of piano and for greater convenience in the serving of refreshments. Circumstances combined to make this third social one of the most auspicious in the annals of the club. The beautiful spring day, the atmosphere of happy sociability, the tasteful decorations, the fine program, and the capable committee in charge were all potent factors contributing to this result. Nearly the entire membership of the club was present, each with her chosen guest, making a gathering of well over 100. Also present as special guests were those gentlemen who graciously contributed to the season's program, Messrs. Bailey, Marshall, Perkins, Prescott, and Wheeler. The pretty decorations were of magnolia blossoms, branches of the graceful shadbush, and cheerful bunches of forsythias, tastefully arranged by Mrs. Julian A. Cameron and Miss May Atwood. Miss Loker, who has won the loyalty of the entire membership in her 3 years' direction of the club, extended well-chosen words of welcome, expressing gratitude for the cooperation of all, and with good suggestions for future work, after which a pleasing program was given. At the close of the program, ice cream and cake were served by a group of young ladies in white, Mrs. Eva Fletcher, Ruth Fisher, Edith Foster, Mrs. Edward Fisher, and Miss Mary E. Moran. The capable committee who had charge of arrangements were Mrs. Samuel L. Taylor, Mrs. Oscar R. Spaulding, Mrs. J.P. Wright, Mrs. S.C. Atwood. The club in our sister town of Littleton was represented by the president, Mrs. Grace E. Lawrence, Mrs. J. M. Hartwell, and Mrs. Daniel G. Houghton. There were also guests present from Shirley, Chelmsford, and Lowell. The next section is Graniteville. In spite of the condition of the times, Graniteville has not been dormant in the building line this spring. Hyacinth Leduc has finished his large barn on Cemetery Hill for the use of his large number of cattle, and has added a cold storage plant in which to keep the milk and cream during the summer months. P. Henry Harrington, the local contractor, who has also finished a large grain shed for J. A. Healy, which is situated near the Boston and Maine tracks. There are also numerous other smaller jobs under construction throughout the village. J. A. Healy and his men commenced work on the Carlisle Road job last Monday morning, and from now on the work will be pushed rapidly. Mr. and Mrs. Albert Furbush of Portland, Maine, were recent guests of Mr. and Mrs. Frank L. Furbush of this village. May 1st has come and gone, and nothing further has been done in regard to opening up a place here for the sale of intoxicating liquors. The latest report in the liquor line is to the effect that a former hotel man from Ayer is making arrangements to procure a liquor license to sell in Ford's Village. The members of the A.R. Schote Hose Company held their regular meeting in Healy's Hall Monday evening and elected officers for the ensuing year. The same officers were unanimously re-elected as follows: Captain J. A. Healy, First Lieutenant Alfred Prynne, Second Lieutenant D.W. Harrington, Steward J. Austin Healy, Treasurer T. A. Riney, Clerk A.R. Wall, Standing Committee Edward Defoe, J. H. Payne, and Lester McClenna. Many people from this village are expected to attend the first baseball game of the season at Stony Brook, Westford Depot, on Saturday afternoon. The Westford Athletic Association and Littleton Athletic Association will be the opposing teams. Joe Butler will be in the box for Westford. Mrs. Noah P. Shipley of Tingsboro, who lives on the Dunstable Road, has been a recent guest of Mr. and Mrs. A.R. Schote. Mrs. Shipley, who was a sister of Mrs. Schote, was a former resident of this village and was employed with the Abbott Worsted Company some 40 years ago. During her brief visit, she visited the plant of this company and was deeply impressed with the many changes that have taken place since her girlhood, the modern machinery being a revelation to her. Mr. Shipley is a keen observer, and the many new facts, coupled with the early reminiscences with former acquaintances here, made her brief stay a very pleasant one. The next section is the Ford's Village section. The Village Improvement Society have started on their good work of beautifying the village by trimming the square formed by the junction of Pine and Pleasant Streets. Through the generosity of Miss Grace Lawrence, who gave a check, they will have a fine display of flowers the coming season. The Abbott Worsted Company have added greatly to the appearance of Mill Grounds and Bradford Street. The ground around Abbott's Hall has been graded and many shrubs set out. The same work is being done around the Mission House. That was on Pleasant Street. The Abbott Company have purchased a fine pair of gray horses for mill work. The outcome of the liquor raid made here about 2 weeks ago was settled in the district court at Ayer in favor of the defendants, the town not being able to sustain a charge against any of them. While Joseph Cannell was plowing last week, the plow hit a rock and the handle struck him just above the heart. He was unconscious for over an hour. Dr. Godfrey of Littleton was in attendance. Conductor Karkin sprained his ankle quite seriously while getting off the car, that's the trolley car, Sunday. He is at his father's, A.W. Karkin. Miss Nellie Henderson of Lincoln Cottage caught her foot in the root of a tree one day this week and injured her foot quite badly. The Ford's Village Lions journeyed to Groton last Saturday and were defeated by a score of 9-7. That was a baseball game. And the last item this week is a letter to the directors of the Westford Water Company. Gentlemen, the following brief report on the quality of water supplied by the Westford Water Company is submitted for your consideration. The State Board of Health, in their report for 1904, published the averages of the analyses of all the groundwater supplies in the state of Massachusetts for the 3 years preceding and including 1904. During the recent official test of the pumping plant at Pine Ridge in Westford, about in the middle of the period of pumping, samples of the water being drawn from the wells were collected and sent to the State Board of Health for analysis. I have compared the results of these analyses with the analyses of the water from certain other groundwater supplies in Massachusetts contained in the 1904 report of the State Board of Health. Groundwater shows very clearly upon chemical analysis the effect of pollution, contamination, or mineral solutions. Chlorine is a characteristic ingredient of polluted matter, although it is a normal constituent of the waters of all parts of the state. The determination of the amount of chlorine is one of the most important means of showing the quality of the water by chemical analysis, and the chlorine contents in parts per 100,000, which is the standard of analysis for various waters in the state, are as follows. Now, he does this for several different tests, and I'm only going to give the information for Westford and his conclusions. Westford wells 0.18 parts per 100,000. The chlorine content at Westford is the normal chlorine for that section of the state and shows that the water is free from pollution. The presence of nitrates in groundwaters is the next most important means of determining whether water has been exposed to previous pollution, and the nitrate contents taken in connection with the chlorine are of the greatest value as indicating freedom of the source of supply from pollution. The nitrates in parts per 100,000 in several towns are as follows, and Westford is 0.0020 parts per 100,000. The Westford water ranks third in the state in nitrates. That means third best, not third worst. And taken in connection with its normal chlorine shows that the source of supply is free from pollution and that the quality of the water is most excellent. The determination of free ammonia and albuminoid ammonia is one of the next most important means of determining the quality of the water. Ammonia in groundwater may have its source in sewage or in decaying vegetable or organic matter. There are free ammonia in parts per 100,000 for several towns in Massachusetts are as follows, and Westford's is 0.004 parts per 100,000. That's 0.4 parts per million, I guess. The Westford water ranks fourth in the state in free ammonia contents, and the extremely small amount present reinforces the conclusions to be drawn from the low chlorine and nitrates. The albuminoid ammonia contents in parts per 100,000 for several towns in Massachusetts shows that Westford is 0.0012 parts per 100,000. The Westford water ranks eighth in the state in albuminoid ammonia, and the amount present, which is extremely low, reinforces the above conclusions. One of the greatest sources of trouble in groundwater supplies is the presence of iron, which, if in sufficient quantity, may precipitate as rust when exposed to the air due to the oxidizing of the iron. The quality of iron may vary at different seasons of the year, and its contents in parts per 100,000 for several towns in Massachusetts is as follows, and Westford's was 0.0020 parts per 100,000. The Westford water ranks first in the state in iron contents. That is, it has the least amount of iron. And this fact is of vital importance, in my opinion, in as much as it is the particular point to which attention should be given in a groundwater supply taken from driven wells. The hardness of groundwater in parts per 100,000 in several towns shows Westford at 0.6 parts per 100,000. The Westford water ranks third in the state on the point of hardness, which is one of the most valuable characteristics of the water as far as domestic use is concerned, it is very soft. In addition to the above figures, it may be added that the Westford water has no odor, whether hot or cold, that it has no turbidity, and that it is absolutely colorless. And this is signed by Edmund M. Blake, engineer, April 10th, 1908. I presume he's an engineer for the state. And that's the news in Westford for the week ending May 9th, 1908. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Nick Woodbury at WestfordCAT for providing technical support. You can find transcriptions from the Westford Wardsman at the Westford Historical Society's website at museum.westford.org, or visit the Historical Society's Facebook page for more Westford news from a century ago. This is Bob Oliphant, and I hope you will join us for next week's Westford Wardsman podcast. Thank you.